Okay, so we're going to now move on to our next speaker, who is Lynne Pinches. And Lynne is a pool champion, and she was faced with playing against a man who had the gender identity, the female gender identity. Thanks so much for coming, Lynne, to tell us about it.
What happened in my case, for anyone who doesn't know my story, we were offered in August 2023 a female only category by our organisations after having transgender players in our organisation for over 6 years. And when we were offered that, there was like an elation between the women that played, and you could feel like a kind of buzz at the next tournament, albeit a bit of a silent one because you still really weren't able to talk about it out loud. Um, and everyone was really happy about that. And then 8 weeks later, yeah, 8 weeks after that, in 2023, in October, they announced that actually, no, we're not going to have a female only category. We're going to reverse that decision and allow trans players to play again. And also added in non-binary into the policy at the same time, which wasn't there previously, and which made it even more of an open section for the women's section, just open for all, really, just free for all. A lady started a support group a few days after that happened, which I was really pleased about, and I was invited to that. And I stated in this group that I was never going to play against another man in a female tournament ever again, and that I'd had enough. Um, that was also said by Alexandra Cuno. Actually, she said it first, and I said, "I'm with you on that. Totally agree. I'm going to do the same." And just unbelievable that a month after that happened, I got to only my fourth final in 30 years of playing pool, and was faced with a transgender player in the final. And since I decided that I wasn't going to play, and I shook hands respectfully with my opponent and just told the referee, unfortunately, this isn't a fair match, so therefore I concede, but thank you very much for your time. And I walked away quietly. And um, since walking away, I've been bullied and harassed online. Um, been even had harassment in person at pool tournaments twice since conceding by a trans player and their partner. I spoke at an event in Norwich, and I had a bottle of water thrown at me after speaking. I knew I was going to do it, but right up until the last minute, if you watch the video of me conceding, you'll see that I don't know which way to go, because my head was telling me one thing and my heart was telling me something else the whole way up. Even though I told everyone, I'm not playing it, I'm not playing it. Even my sister said to me afterwards, I know you kept saying that you were going to do it, but I really didn't believe you would. I didn't
Yeah.
actually believe that you would do it. And I said, I went with my heart in the end, and I know it's not right. I just feel like, I'm 52 now, so I was 50 at the time. And I've come into the end of my playing career, if you like. I've got a terribly bad back, so I can't play much longer. And I've got two granddaughters who I haven't even put a cue in their hand, and they're 7 and 8. So, and I would have done already if I thought that the sport I'm playing in could offer them a fair field, and they can't at the
I mean,
moment.
hopefully it will change, and partly because of
Absolutely.
actions of people like you. Would you have won a lot of money, and is it very prestigious? Would it have been like
It was £1,000 to the winner, and the runner-up got 500. So it was half the prize money. But actually, I said the tournament director came to me after I'd done it, and he said, I take it you still want your prize money. And I said, actually, no. I said, actually, I don't. I don't. You can keep the trophy, you can keep the prize money. It means absolutely nothing to me without fairness. I
hmm.
don't want the money. I said I was prepared to lose, I wasn't expecting to get anything. And he said, give me your bank details and we'll send it over. So they did send me the money. But it's not the money at all. I have done so many interviews since this happened, and been offered money for interviews, and I've turned every single penny down. I'm not a wealthy person at all. Because of my back, I only work 1 day a week. I don't have a lot of money at all. This is, for me, is not a financial thing. The solicitors, we have a legal case going now, and we raised £25,000 with your help and everybody else's help. The public, it's the public's money that's being spent. As it is with most of these cases, the money is raised mostly by the public, and and it's the only winners are the solicitors.
Why is it that it's not fair? Because you know, we know things like boxing or something, you can really see why it's not fair. But in pool, what makes it unfair for men to compete against, or who say that they're women to compete against women?
I think there are several things. The power that men have in it's the cue power that they can do it with the things that they can do with the white ball that women cannot do. The break shot is the most important shot, and I did. You need to score a certain amount of points on the break for it not to be a foul break. So if you don't get score 3 points on the break, you have to get balls to come backwards past the halfway line. You get a point for every ball that you pot, and a point for every ball that comes backwards past the halfway line where the middle pockets are. And so I did like an experiment at a county game where I asked the men across all sections to record any foul breaks they had, not for the white going in the pocket or flying off the table, but just not scoring the 3 point rule. And we tested up. We had 44 games in the women's, and we had 4 foul breaks, so it's around 10%. And when I got the results back from the men afterwards, I was astounded because they played 178 versus our 44, and across all of the other 4, 5 sections, they didn't have one, not one
And is
single
that
foul
because they're
break.
stronger? They just can hit
The
that
balls,
first
yeah,
ball.
because the balls split better and they carry on. If you watch a man's break compared with most females, the balls carry on moving longer because they impact more power through the pack and they carry on moving. So you've got more chance of pot on one, I think. Statistically, you definitely have more chance of pot on one if you're a man, I would expect. I mean, this will all be what we're doing at the minute. I can tell you a little bit about the legal case because we did a GoFundMe, and a lot of that was written on our recent update on there, where we had to raise a further 5,000 because we ran out of money. Um, so what we're having is 2 experts working on whether pool is gender affected as per the Equality Act. Because if it is gender affected, then it's just they've discriminated against us. We feel like we've been discriminated against anyway by allowing men into our sport. But if we can prove it's gender affected for pool, then we can prove it for darts, golf, any sport, hockey, even though I think all of these sports are, they say they're non-contact, hockey and football, but we know contact takes place. They should be excluded anyway already. It's ridiculous.
Mm.
But if we can prove that for what they call precision sports, is gender affected, then they're going to have to just across the board do it. So this is like a landmark legal case, really, because if we do it in Q sports, darts and things, they all come under the same bracket, and we'll have if we win, we'll then have it set in stone forever that we can lawfully exclude from any sport. You know, any sport. They're all gender affected.
Yeah.
Every sport. There's
I
not a
mean,
single
yeah,
sport that men dominate. That women, sorry, dominate at.
and you were saying that you've got 2 sons, and that those 2 sons,
Yeah,
it's what just the moment they hit puberty, they became better than
yeah.
you,
I
even though
have
you've been
now. I've
playing it
got
for many
three
years.
sons
Oh,
now.
three,
I've
yeah.
got 3 sons now. I've got two that played at the time. Played and have already overtaken. But my third son is only 10 years old at the moment, and he's playing pool now as well. Now, when my older two were younger, they got to sort of 13, 14, and they ended up getting stolen out of my Division 2 pool team that I was in by the Premier League players who said, "Can we please have him in our pool team? Because we think that we can, he's a great player and we think we could improve him even further. I'm not going to not let him go." So, I knew these men and I trusted them. So they took him under their wing but it already improved to such a level beyond mine. Now, my 10-year-old, this is one statistic, like we're talking about the brake shot. My highest brake speed, because we've got an app that we can test brake speed on, is 16.02 miles an hour. And my 10-year-old is 19.06 miles an hour. He's tiny. He weighs 6 stone, and I'm like 11 stone. And I'm scratching my head going, what? No. So like the biggest woman in all the tests I did personally because I was interested in the biology and somehow there's a way to prove this and stuff like that. So I did tests on break speed and the biggest woman I tested was at the time 19 stone and 6 foot tall, and she hit 19 miles an hour. Now, that's what my 10-year-old hits. The smallest man was, let me get this right, he was 8 stone and 5'2", and he hit 18.8. So he almost got as much as a 20 stone 6 foot woman in the break power. And but through the sex categories, it does go in size kind of thing. So the bigger the man compared to the smaller the man, the higher the break. And it's the same with the women. The smallest woman of the same height as the smallest man and the same weight only got 10 miles an hour,
Mm.
and to his 18.8. So there's a huge percentage, and that is just one thing. Now, in our legal case, we don't have to prove that there are 12 differences. We only have to prove that there's one. That's all, because there shouldn't be any, not
Yeah. And
inherent
when
ones.
is the case coming up?
Well, ours is not. Ours is a behind the scenes sort of. We're not in litigation, but because we decided that if we could prove its gender effect and do it this way, we thought it would be quicker than going to court. But it's turned out actually to be quite a long process and has been going on since October 23, so 15, 16 months now. But it's very close to coming to an end. And but there is another court case going on in our sport. We have two. There's our legal case where we are challenging the policy and the organisations and saying you've discriminated and we want to look into it. And then on the other hand, you've got a trans player taking another organisation, a pool organisation, to court. Now that is happening next month, April 7th to 11th, April the 7th to 11th in Canterbury Court in Kent. The English Blackball Pool Federation are being taken to court by Harriet Haynes for discrimination based on gender reassignment surgery as a protected characteristic. Now, to me, after reading a lot about the equality law in the last 16 months and being at a webinar with Michael Foran, the expert as well, I heard him talk for an hour about it. So it was quite well, it was an eye opener to say the least. But I have always felt right from the beginning that you're not being excluded because of your gender reassignment surgery. You're being excluded because of your sex, because the
Yes.
categories are based
Yeah.
upon sex.
Yeah.
So I don't understand how it's got to court, because let's say hypothetically that Harriet Haynes was to win the court case, and Blackball then have to change their rules back to let Harriet play, and all the females got a part of that again. And so if Harriet was to win, as soon as the lady in charge of the Blackball organisation walks out of the court, any lady that plays for the Blackball organisation could hand her a letter saying, I am suing you for sex discrimination for letting men play in our sport if you're about to let that happen again. And there's thousands of women that play. So if they all collaborated in together and wrote a letter together, you're looking at a massive amount of money. So how can one person's success on a discrimination case then discriminate against thousands of others?
What's your feeling in of the participants, the women who are playing? Do you think that they mostly agree with you? And what's going on? Are they being supportive, or some of them just saying we're going to put up with this?
They no, there's a massive percentage that agrees. I would say it's only I'm going to be generous and say 5% are probably for it. That is it. It's a very small percentage that agree with it. And we know that since I conceded. We didn't know it before, because if you tried to talk about it, you were just backed, into a corner and told that we were not allowed to talk about that. Because one woman spoke publicly about this in our sport, actually. Her name's Helen, and she writ on. We had the two transgender players drew each other in the final, got to the final together a couple of years ago, and this lady put on her Facebook, "Women's Ultimate Pool final, two men in the final." So someone commented and said, "Two men? What are you talking about?" And they didn't know that Harriet was a male. So, and didn't believe it, quite frankly. They said, "No way, that's not true." And so this lady put a photograph of the player pre-transition, and she was subsequently banned. She's still banned from playing in their events. And then that had a knock-on effect where she was then banned from her local county team, pool team, then playing for Wales, weren't allowed to play for Wales anymore, and then tried to join a different county and was with a mutual friend tried to join. She tried to join on both their behalf, and the mutual friend was told, "I'm happy for you. We're happy for you to join, but we don't think that Helen would be a good fit." Which
Yeah.
is so. And these were women. These were that was the way she was treated to speak on publicly, was called transphobic for saying there's two men in the final, basically, because I've seen all of the paperwork that goes with all of these bans and stuff. I've seen it all. It's all true.
Mm.
And she was used as a scapegoat because a year later I walked away from that final, and yes, I've had a few women comments on Facebook, "You're a bigot, you're a transphobe," but there's such a tiny percentage, considering like what Jasmine said earlier about the public support that you get and the local support, and from other pool players, because I mean, I haven't lost as much as other people. Jasmine's lost her job. Other people have lost their livelihoods and their reputations have been ruined. Um, I don't feel like I've lost anywhere. I've lost a bit of mental health. I've got to tell you, it's been that's been tough mentally to take the abuse. But then I revert back and I remind myself of the nice comments, and I save little screenshots of them or things people have sent me that, like, "Thank you so much for what you did," because I feel like I can go home and talk to my family about something that I haven't been able to talk to because, I have a trans cousin, or a trans friend, or someone my mum works with is trans, or there always seems to be like an emotional attachment somewhere.
On the positive side, I mean, are you pleased that you walked away? Do you think that
Absolutely,
quite a lot
absolutely,
of,
I
what
am.
sort of good things have happened
I mean,
for you by doing it?
um, just that women feel like they're able to talk about it, and that there's been a lot of women stand up and say, "No, I'm not playing your game either," because I think I was one of the first to actually say, to make a stand by just walking away from it and saying, "I'm not doing it anymore." And then there was a boxer did it after me about a week later, and then I saw a team had done it, and then the young shot putters all just walked away, and it just sort of went around different countries like a bit like a domino effect, one push, and then everyone sort of thought, "Well, actually, she's right." It isn't right. It's not about being kind. I am kind. I'm a kind person. I
Yeah,
am. Um, and it's not about kindness. I don't think anyone thought it through, because this isn't, when they change it back and it does become all female, because it is going to happen eventually. It's now happening in the USA, so it's got to spread around the world eventually. When they do it, it's going to affect the mental health of these trans players as well. And that is something that, even though they put themselves into that situation by entering women's sports and stuff, to be part of something for 6 years or longer, or however long some have been hidden in there, and then have that taken away, it's still going to have a mental effect on you, whether it's a mental condition that caused that in the first place, or your gender dysphoria, if it's genuine or whatever. It's still going to affect them mentally as well. So I don't think that it's been thought through. It's got to stop. It's got to stop
yeah.
somewhere. They're
If they're
not
going,
thinking about the effect of their mental health now on the women that it's affecting. Harriet won the ladies' rankings a couple of years ago, and when you win that, you get sort of rewarded with a pro spot. So then that's amongst the open, which is all men, apart from Harriet, and
mm,
I think Emma Cunningham and Amy Beauchamp were in it as well. But Harriet finished ranked 74th in that,
amongst the men, yes,
amongst the men pros, but in the women pros, have finished first. So, and finished first again
yes.
this year. Um, there's tried being in the men's, but they did actually. Harriet said in a newspaper in an interview recently that she didn't want to be forced to play in a trans category, or the open, because that would reveal her identity. But that's already been sort of revealed, I would think, to this point, that most people know. Like, it went round the world when I conceded, so I don't think that
Yes.
by hiding the identity is way past that. So you can't really say that that's the reason you don't want to play in the open. And having played in the opens, plenty of opens before, you can't say that's the reason. But I don't think a trans separate category would work. It has to be open and female, or
Yeah.
male and female. I
Yeah.
don't mind at all if women are not allowed to play male sports, and I would like to say that as well. Um, I do think that, you know, women did fight for wanting to get to play into men's sports, but they're not going to, and that still hasn't happened, where a woman has actually won a man's pro tournament when they've been in there. So they're only getting, they might win the first match and maybe they might win two, but that's probably the most anyone's ever got through in any women's kind of thing. So I do think
Yeah.
that that also takes opportunities away from amateur youth players that want to get those men's pro spots when they are given to women as a reward for doing well on a women's tour. I've always felt like that.
Yeah, that
So
is a
I,
good
I
point.
see it from both sides. So
Yeah,
two categories. It's
I
either
think,
got to be male and female or
yeah,
male, not male, open and
yes,
female only.
and female, yeah.